In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to configure a DLP. For this demonstration, we're going to be using the Google Suite, which is known as Google Workspace, to be able to configure a DLP for Google Drive, Google Chat, as well as Google Mail, which is Gmail. Now, if you're using Office 365, it's a very similar process, and I don't want you to worry too much about the exact specifics of what I'm doing, but really focus on the concepts and how DLP works and is configured using the setup wizards. Now, from within Google Workspace, you're going to go to your admin panel, which is located at admin.google.com. This feature and functionality does not work on free Google accounts. This only works if you have a paid subscription to Google for their Google Workspace product at the enterprise or educational level. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to configure it to be able to protect our chat and our Google Drive from having data loss happening by configuring a DLP solution there. To find that, we're simply going to go under Security on the left menu bar, and then we're going to hit the down arrow. We're going to click on Access and Data Control, and then we're going to go down to Data Protection. Once you click on Data Protection, the Data Protection screen will load. From here, you can get information about your drive as well as your chats that are being blocked or not blocked based on the existing DLP solution. So you can see here, by default, Google already has a DLP solution in place, and it's looking for things like email addresses, phone numbers, gender identity, and other things like that. You can notice here that we have 17.5% of our drive files marked as being sensitive and being shared externally by their data type based on October 6th when we had this scan run last of all of our files, which has over 300,000 files. As you can see here, email addresses are by far the most common thing that are being flagged here in DLP because a lot of our stuff uses email addresses as an example, like support@deontraining.com on some of our slides and things like that that we use in our classes. Now, underneath this, you're going to see that we have different rules that are recommended for your organization. In this case, they're saying we should prevent sharing global email addresses, and we can review that recommended rule and implement it if we wanted to. So for example, if I go over here and click on the Review Recommended Rule, it will bring up the template for it, which is already configured, and it's telling me, hey, this is already set up. All you have to do is accept it, or you can edit this rule. And what we're looking for here is anything that looks like an email address that's being sent outside of our organization. And for here, we have the alerts disabled. Google Drive will give you a warning if you try to share something that contains this type of data, and we consider this to be a low sensitivity. Now, in our case, it is not a rule we have activated yet, and if I wanted to set it to active, which is set up right here, I would simply click on the Create button to put this rule into effect. Now, for our purposes, we are not worried about email addresses being sent out as part of our Google Drive files, because again, we use email addresses in almost everything we do, and most of them are examples or dummy email addresses like test@test.com or support@deontraining.com, which is one that we use a lot in our training materials. Let's go back and look at how we can configure our own rules for something more specific that we might want to protect. So from this screen, we're going to scroll down and you can see that we have Manage Rules. We're going to click on that, and this will allow us to set up our data protection rules. Right now, you can see we have none available in our domain or in our account. So we want to add a rule to be able to create something to protect. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add a Rule, and I'm going to create a new rule. Now, when I create this new rule, I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to call this Block SSNs because I want to block social security numbers. The description here is going to be configure DLP to prevent SSNs from being shared in chat or Google Drive files. All right. That way, when we see a long list of hundreds of different DLP rules, we know what this rule is designed to do. Then you're going to choose your scope. Your scope is who in the organization does this apply to. By default, it's going to apply to everyone, but there may be certain things you want to set up for only certain groups of people. For example, I could set up a rule that says that none of my instructors can email out anything that looks like an exam question because we don't want our instructors taking our exam database and posting it online or in an open file like inside of Google Drive. So that might be a place where we only want a certain thing to be held under certain people. Or we can create rules that have to do with finances, and only our accounting department has those applied to them, because in my courses, I could talk about the fact that there is a credit card number or an amount of money like $15. But on the accounting side, we don't want those details getting out. And so these are the kind of things you can do when you want to have a smaller area. But for something like blocking social security numbers, it's probably a good idea to block all social security numbers because nobody should be sending those things around. So I'm going to use all in Deon Training. Then we're going to click on Continue. And here we're going to say, what is this going to apply to? Which applications? Now from here, you can do it in two main places. One is Google Chat, and this is for the messages you send as well as the files you upload. and the other one is Google Drive for any files that are being added to Google Drive. In our case, we want both of these to be able to be checked to make sure that we're not sending out social security numbers. You'll notice when I click File Uploaded under Google Chat, it is going to use OCR or optical character recognition to also check any photographs that you upload, because those could contain information too, like a picture of your social security card. Next, we'll hit Continue, and then here we're going to add our conditions. What kind of data do we want this rule to actually look for? Now, what am I going to scan? Is it all content or just certain content? In our case, I want everything to be scanned. And what am I scanning for? Well, you can use matching predefined data types. You can create a text string. You can create a match for a regular expression, or you can match words from a word list. So for example, maybe I'm working on a top secret project called Operation Neptune, and I want to make sure that never gets out of my organization. Well, I can set up a rule here that matches the words from a list or contains a text string of Operation Neptune, and if I see those words, I will block that message. Now in our case, we're trying to block social security numbers, and that is one of the predefined data types. So I'm just going to select that. As you go through this list, they are in alphabetical order based on predefined data types for different countries. So I'm in the United States, so I'm going to scroll all the way down to the US, and under the US, I'm going to find the one that says social security number. Notice there's a lot of other things in here like state names, taxpayer identifications, passports, different ID numbers like the German ID number or the Australian ID number, your driver's license, your phone numbers, your addresses, all that kind of stuff. But for us, we worry about the social security numbers, so we're going to go ahead and click on that. Then we're going to assign a likely threshold. Where do we want actions to start happening, whether those are logging, whether those are alerting, whether that is notifying the user that they're doing it, or is it blocking it altogether? Regardless of what action we're going to take, we first have to define when is the likely threshold going to apply. Now, if you set it to something like very low, you are going to get a ton of false positives and lots of things are going to be blocked that shouldn't be blocked. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. Generally, if it's something like a social security number or a phone number, I will set it to high or very high. Some people will go down as far as medium, but for me, I like to set it at least at high. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of false positives and a lot of work for you to look through. And then you're going to look at the minimum number of unique matches and the minimum match count. In both of these cases, 1 is set as the default value, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. Now, we have this set up to search for US-based social security numbers. If we have a high or very high likelihood of a match, we will then take some action. So we can tick on Continue. We will now define what action that is. And we're going to do this for each of those two applications. First, we have Google Chat. If somebody types in a social security number in Google Chat, what do we want to happen? Do we want to warn the user? Do we want to block the message? Or do we want to audit, which means we're just going to log that thing and tell our system administrators about it? Again, depending on what you're trying to accomplish with DLP, you want to make a decision based on what you're going to do. In our case, I want to block the message because I don't want people sending social security numbers over chat. And so we'll just go ahead and hit block message. Now from here, you'll select all the things it's going to apply to. Does it apply to internal or external conversations, spaces, chats, or one-on-one chats, and things like that? And in addition to that, you can also give a message to your user if they're being warned or blocked. So in my case, I'm going to use a custom message. And it says your message may contain sensitive content like, I'm going to put a social security number that shouldn't be shared based on your organization's policies. Edit as needed, check your admin if it doesn't seem right. Okay. And then we also are going to set this up for Google Drive. And here, if I have a file with something that looks like a social security number, do I want to block external sharing, warn on external sharing, or disable download, print, and copying for commenters and viewers? In our case, I'm going to go ahead and block external sharing because I don't want any files with social security numbers being sent outside of our organization. And then we have alerting. When the event matches this rule criteria, the event is going to be reported in the security dashboard and the alert center if applicable. What level of events should it be reported under? If this rule fires, is this considered a low event, or is this considered a medium or a high event? Well, because we're talking about data getting out, and this isn't the most critical of data, we probably want to have this set at something like a medium. But again, this is a risk-based decision that your organization will come to. And then in addition to that, you can also send to the alert center by sending additional detailed analysis so your system administrators are able to go ahead and take care of this issue. And in addition to that, you can also email them, but we're not going to do that because we're going to let our cybersecurity workforce take care of going through all those alerts and taking care of those themselves. And then we'll hit continue. And from here, you see all the details of what we just configured. And then we're going to go all the way to the bottom, and then we will set it to be active. Now, this rule is in effect. And if somebody tries to upload a file with a social security number or tries to send a social security number over Google Chat, it will be blocked and it will then take the actions that we specified in this rule. Now, the second thing we need to set up is one for Gmail. Gmail is located in a separate place, but it's still underneath this admin dashboard. To access it, we're going to go on the left side under admin. We're going to click on apps, and then we're going to go to Google Workspace, and then we're going to click on Gmail, which is located about halfway down. Once you're there, you're going to go down and scroll on the right-hand side all the way down to compliance. And under compliance, you will find our DLP features. Now, from here, we have this turned on for everyone. And right now you can see that email and chat auto deletion is currently not set. Optical character recognition is turned on. Comprehensive mail storage is turned on. And then we have other things as we go down. Now, as we go down towards the bottom, we're going to be able to see that there's one called content compliance. And that is what they call DLP inside of Gmail. So what we're going to do is hit configure. And from here, we're going to say what is required. What are we going to call this? So we're going to say this is blocking SSNs being sent by email. And then we're going to say, what is it going to affect? Well, I just said we're sending it. So we're going to set this as an outbound rule. If somebody wants to send me an inbound social security number, we'll accept it, but we're not going to be responsible for sending those out. Then we're going to add an expression that describes the content we want to search for. And again, there are all of these preset things that we can use. We can use a simple content match, an advanced content match, a metadata match, or predefined content. In our case, we're going to use predefined content, and it already selected United States Social Security number for me by default, probably because that is what we just used in the other rule. So it's guessing that's probably what I want. And then you'll see it also has a confidence threshold here, and we could set that again from high, medium, low, etc. I personally liked it to have a high threshold, so I'm going to set that there, and then I'm going to hit save. Now from here, I can scroll down, and we can see if any of the expressions above match, what action do we want to have? Do we want to modify the message? Do we want to route it? Do we want to mark it as spam? Do we want to deliver it to somebody else? Do we want to encrypt it? All sorts of different options that we can choose. And if you go here, you can also reject the message, quarantine the message, etc. So in this case, we might quarantine the message anytime we find a social security number, and then we can notify the sender when the mail is quarantined, so they know, hey, we have not sent this email out because it's in quarantine, and they know that the other person they sent it to is not going to get that message. And then we can hit save. And from here, we now have a new rule that's been applied here in content compliance. That's it. Now at this point, we have two rules set up. We have one that's set up for our chat and our Google Drive to help prevent something sensitive like a social security number from being sent. And we've also set up the same thing inside of Gmail. Now, the last thing I want to bring up is this thing called the data loss prevention demo that Google gives you access to inside of your account. In here, you actually can see a sample email message up top. Notice we have the welcome text and it's all this information. At the bottom, we have what they call the findings. So using this sample, we can see on line 5, for example, strings like this one produce a phone number finding. Please call me. My phone number is 555-253-0000. If you look down below, the first finding is a very likely high, and the string was 555-253-0000. So this says, yes, this was a phone number. We believe it's a phone number. And looking at this, we believe it's a phone number too. As we go through the rest of this, you will see that it's parsing the information to find any kind of information that it thinks is there, like email addresses, credit card numbers, domain names, and things like that. And as we scroll through here, you'll probably see a couple of those, like the email address right here, like the credit card number right here, like the national provider identity right here. And you'll see that's down here as well, with these highly likely as either a US driver's license or a healthcare ID. And you have all the kind of information as you go through. Now, if I go in here and I add something, for example, I say something like, this is my social security number, and I put something like 432-12-1234, you will now see down below the second finding is a US social security number and is very likely high, and it thinks that that is a social security number because it takes the social security number format of 3 digits, then 2 digits, then 4 digits. Now, if I take out the words social security in front of the number, you're going to notice that the one at the bottom is no longer going to recognize this as a high likelihood of being a social security number. And here you'll see that social security dropped off our findings, but if I go a little bit further down, you'll see it will show up again down here, but now it's unlikely and low. Why is that? Well, because it's just a 9-digit number separated by some dashes, and they don't know if it's something like an identification number, a social security number, an employee ID, or anything else. It's just a number at this point. Now, if I take away the word number and I type in SSN, again, you'll notice that the social security number is going to pop right back up as very likely. Now, the other thing I've noticed in this is if you play with some numbers like 123-45-6789, this is still showing up as a social security number because it's in that format and has the word SSN. But again, if I take this away, my identification number, now you'll see it's going to go away from that and it's going to look like something else. And now it's a possible medium for social security instead of a low or a high based on what it's seeing. So this is a great way to play with your data loss prevention tool and see what will and what will not get caught based on this system. For example, if I type something like jason@diontraining and don't put the .com, it's probably not going to realize that that is actually an email, and it doesn't. Instead of being an email, they think it is my person's name. But my name is not Jason@diontraining, it's Jason Dion. And so that's the way that this DLP stuff works. It's scanning it, it's looking at context, it's looking at what you've chosen, and it's figuring out what should be blocked or what should not be blocked based on the rules you set up in your data loss prevention system.